back to my crafty space. In today's video, I am going to be putting together the first project using the Begin Story Kit for Story Kit Crush. This is going to be one of two process videos that you will see here on Patreon. The second one will be coming on Wednesday. So for this layout, I mostly took inspiration from this 6x4 card here that has the 6 2x2 boxes that say this with a little bit of white space here at the bottom. What I thought I could do is turn this on its side and actually cut these apart to create window cards where journaling would be located behind the cards themselves. So I've gone ahead and printed out my journaling on another 6x4 canvas or card size. And what I'm planning to do is to actually cut out the sections here and turn these into window cards that will go on top of the pieces underneath. I am going to cut these apart in order to space them onto a traveler's notebook size canvas. And then I've also used my silhouette to cut out the word begin. This was the coded cardstock word that we received this year, but I took the digital version and cut it 3 times on my silhouette with a black cardstock. So my plan is to glue these all together to create my own sort of chipboard-ish looking piece here, giving this a little bit of dimension, and then to use that as a title piece for my whole entire layout. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get you on fast forward while I start putting these together. Just as an FYI, if you are in tier 2, the journaling piece right here is part of the digital download. So you can print or you can grab this digital, put it into Photoshop, add in your own text, and make this exact same layout if this is something that strikes your fancy. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into today's process. All right, friends, so we're going to get started by working on the photo side of this layout first, which is going to be the more simple of the two sides. For this one, I just want to go ahead and cut out the heart piece that says ready to begin, and I wanted to leave a little bit of a green border around the outside of the heart. I generally just like the way that that looks, leaving a little of the original card color around the outside edge of the line. It helps to make it so I don't have to be super duper precise when I am fussy cutting, and also just, I don't know, it gives it a little bit of extra color pizzazz on the page. So then I will add some adhesive to the back side of that, and my plan is to put it in the bottom left-hand corner, kind of on the counter space of my photo here. I took this photo in the bathroom as a selfie right before the start of our first book club meeting. I'm going to have the heart interact with the edges. I just like the way that that looks, trim off the extra pieces, and then set the photo to the side. And now that is pretty much all I'm going to do to the photo side. For the rest of this, it's a little labor intensive, but everything turns out so spectacularly, friends. I absolutely adore this layout. I did go ahead and cut out the word begin on my silhouette 3 different times because I knew I wanted to layer them together in order to create some extra dimension on my page. So I'm taking my Tombow Mono liquid adhesive here. This is just the one that I prefer. I've used it for a number of years, and I like how it gives you just a second to let it dry. It is fairly sticky though, so if you get it all over things, like the stick does not come out super easily. So there is that as a fair warning. I just dab the glue in kind of like a dotted line around the entire die cut piece, and then stick, another one on top of it, and did that again in order to create a 3-layer thick word begin. Then I just set that to the side to use later. Next, we're going to focus our attention on making these window cards. So the first step for me was to go ahead and trim all of these 2x2 pieces out. So I'm taking care with the journaling portion to make sure that it's all in the same order that I printed it in, because my story does have 6 pieces to it that progress in order to create a full story. So I want them to be in the right order. For the window cards, I also want those to be in the same order that they originally came in, because I just liked the flow of the colors on that original 6x4 card. So I layered them up in a row so I could remember which one comes first and second and third and so on. Now comes the maybe not so tricky part, but tricky part. And I did have to edit out a lot of this footage because my head needed to go directly over top in order to make sure that I was cutting the right places. It didn't cut all the way through the first time, so I did just go back over the lines again to make sure I got any of the pieces that I missed. So I did the top section, the bottom section, the two side pieces, and then I did the little half circle there, just trying to be really careful to make sure that I cut it into as smooth of a half circle as possible. For the lines though, the straight lines, I do use my ruler to help me get straight edges. And that is one of the tips I do have is when you're using a craft knife, if you're trying to make a straight line, use one of these metal rulers to help guide your blade. You just have to, like for me, I had to get my head all the way over the top of it so I could make sure that I was going along the correct line and for the correct length of the line. Once I had all the window portions cut out, the next step was to create a fold so that they could easily open and close. I did use my scoring board in order to do that. And then once I've got all of those folded up the way that I want them, I'm bringing that liquid adhesive back over again, and I'm creating a border of glue dots around the perimeter of it. So I don't want any glue to get on the flip out window portion. Then I can line it up onto my journaling square. Since these are both 2x2s, they should fit directly on top of each other, but then they end up with a slight little white edge around the outside. So I'm just going to bring over my little trimmer here and get a smooth cut on all 4 edges. So I'm going to do that for all of these pieces and then just repeat the process again. So adding the glue dots, sticking it down on top of the journaling piece, and then trimming off the extra bits around the outside edges in order to create clean lines where the underneath isn't sticking out anymore. So I'm going to zip us past all of that because we don't need to see all of the windows being created since it's the exact same thing over and over again. And then once I have all of my pieces pretty much ready to go, the next thing I want to do is select a page inside of my traveler's notebook for this layout to go on. I originally was thinking about just covering up the pattern paper part and then having the rest of the pieces on the plain grid. But then when I saw this colorful stripe and the way that it really mirrored the colors in the window cards, I thought maybe what I'll do is trim down my photo a little bit more so that striped color sticks out of the side. I'm going to flip through the rest of this book just to see if there are any other pages that seem to go a little bit better. This one I thought I could do the same thing as the solid stripe, but I felt like the little line stripes instead of the solid stripes were just too busy for the eye. So instead, I'm going to flip back to my original gut instinct page, and this is what we're going to go with. I trimmed off a little bit there, and you can see the stripe page on the left-hand side, but I wanted to be able to see even more of it. Since the right-hand side of my photo is not that important, it's just my arm, I went ahead and trimmed off probably about a half of an inch. And then I'm going to stick this down inside of the book using my double-sided adhesive here. So this is a score tape that I get from scrapbook.com. It has been out of stock for months, and I have a pretty decent stock at my house because when I run out, I like to just bulk up on it so I don't have to purchase it all the time. But I have noticed that this particular tape has been sold out for a long time on scrapbook.com, as have a lot of their kind of basics supplies that I use all the time. They have some pens that I really love to use, and those have been sold out for the last 3 months. So I had to go find a different solution instead. Just, side note, side tangent there, I suppose. Okay, so we stuck down the photo. I need to trim off the top piece here just to even it up with the top of the book. And then my photo side is done, and that just looks so good. I'm so happy that that this page was available for me to use inside of my traveler's notebook. I should also mention that this particular traveler's notebook is from Studio Calico. Every once in a while, I will purchase a couple of their traveler's notebook kits when they go on super sale. I do not subscribe to them, but I do enjoy using their traveler's notebooks as kind of a home for more of these story types of layouts. So that's where this one came from. It's just one that I had in my stash. Now, I did debate adding a stamped title that said "a story" underneath these numbers, but when I tested it out, like I pre-stamped it on some plain white paper and then added the number over top, it covered up so much of the stamp that you couldn't even read what it said underneath. So I decided to forego the stamping. I'm not going to do that, and I'm just going to stick down these fabric adhesive numbers, which are probably one of my favorite things that Allie has created in the last, gosh, a long time. Like, I really, really love these. I wish I would have gotten another set of them because I love them that much. So I used 1 through 6 on the 6 window cards here, and then I'm going to add that same double-sided adhesive onto the back of all 6 of these cards. So they're around the 4 sides or the perimeter of the back side. Once I have the tape on there, I'm going to start with the number 6 because that's going to be the easiest for me to position down in the bottom right-hand corner. So I'll remove the backing, stick that one down, trying to keep it as straight as possible, which is also part of why it's easiest for me to start in the corner because I can gauge how straight I am based on the 2 edges instead of just 1 edge. So I'll stick that one down first, and then I'm going to go to the number 5 next and get kind of that bottom row all adjusted and where I want it to be. And then once I have the bottom row done, then I'm going to start working my way up the page, just trying to keep everything in line, and as straight as possible. While I'm sitting here voicing this over, I just realized that I have my coffee machine brewing a fresh batch of coffee for me, and it's just made all of this really loud gurgling noises. So if you heard that when I was talking, I apologize about that. I didn't even think about it until it just got really obnoxious and I had to pause in order to wait for it to finish up before I could continue on with voicing this over, but it's funny. That's funny. So yay for fresh coffee, right? Okay, so now that we've got all 6 of those window cards down, next I added the begin title up at the top. I just used that same liquid adhesive to stick it down on the page. I'm super confident with that glue that that's going to hold it on here really well. And then I picked one of these tiny phrase stickers to add underneath the begin title as a sort of subtitle. Now, because the begin word is propped up with 3 layers of cardstock, I did decide to add a little bit of foam adhesive behind the tail portion of the tiny phrase sticker in order to keep everything kind of on an even level, and it makes that all look a lot better. The last thing I want to do is add my date stamp for when I actually completed this layout. For this, I always just try to find a blank space that kind of makes sense for it. I put it next to the heart at the bottom and then called this one done. All right, friends, that completes my layout for today. I love this page. I just love it. There's so much texture to it. There's so much dimension in it. It also folds up nice, even though it's in a traveler's notebook. I'm obsessed. So we've got the photo on the left side where I decided to cut a little bit off. So we got the rainbow color that brings in a lot of the colors from the right side. That was totally serendipitous. And then on the right side of this one, we've got all these little windows that have journaling with story underneath. And I just love it. Okay. Let me go ahead and read you my journaling for this layout, and then we will call this one done. So for number 1, and I should preempt this and say that I'm sure I probably told you in the voiceover, but that this story is about starting the book club, Shelf Life Book Club, for our Patreon and how that whole idea began. So here we go. Number 1. Towards the end of 2021, I had a few people reach out to me about including a book club with my Patreon. I've always loved to read, and I want to read more in 2022. I thought this was the perfect idea. The trouble was, Where was I going to find the time to run it? 2. My sister Haley is also an avid reader, though much more avid than me. I knew she wanted to try and establish herself in the book industry, and that led me to an idea on collaborating this year and having her run my Patreon book club for me for the 2022 annual year. And number 3. Haley agreed to come on board and help me out. I was so excited to not only have help with this aspect of what I do, but to also have someone I could talk to about my work-related stuff. Sometimes working for yourself can be really lonely. Then number 4. Once Haley agreed to come and lead my book club, the next step was to figure out what books we would read this year. I'm a big planner, so we decided to select all 12 books for the entire year. Haley helped me pick out a lot of really interesting ones. Number 5. We wanted to make our book club a little different from others out there by encouraging our members to fully immerse in the stories. Each month, Haley is putting together food, drink recipes, and suggestions for dressing up in character. I'm so excited for this. And then number 6. In January, we held our very first meeting, and it was a huge success. I love discussing books, and it was so fun to talk about the January book with my sisters and my crafty friends. I love that everyone had fun with it and can't wait for our future meetings. So there we go. How book club came to being for our Patreon group. All right, friends, well, I hope that this has inspired you to try thinking outside of the box with some of your cards that are coming in the kits you're working with, or perhaps to try out a different size. Maybe you've been working in a 6x8 and you're starting to feel bored of that. Maybe try working in a traveler's notebook or go big and make a 12x12. That's actually what I'm going to be doing on Wednesday. We're going to go from today being the really small format of a traveler's notebook to the next process video on Wednesday being a 12x12 large format. So I'm excited to show you how to use the Begin Story Kit for a much larger project as well. Okay, so that is going to be it for today. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your Monday. Enjoy the week ahead. And friends, I will catch you in Wednesday's video. Bye, friends.